So we have Turfway's version of the Derby Prep with the Jeff Ruby Stakes, and as we know, over the last couple of years, this has been a very viable Derby Prep with two fills last year who ran a really nice second in the Derby, Kentucky Derby, and Rich Strike, of course, who won it at 81 to 1. Thank you very much. So this is a race we certainly want to pay attention to. This is the 12th race on Turfway's Saturday card, and it's important to note that this will be run during the day. Turfway normally runs at night, but this card is run during the day. It's a mile and an eighth on the all-weather for 3-year-olds. And we'll take a look at this field, and we see a lot of horses we've seen before. Pletcher's got Top Pletcher has 3 horses in this race, all Mike Rapoli's, a noted Agate Road, and perhaps with the also eligibles Triple Espresso, who's also entered in the Louisiana Derby, so we want to take note of that. We've got Northern Flame, who has Kenny McPeak trainee, who just ran in the I believe it was the Rebel Stakes, as well as Otello we saw in the Holy Bull, didn't do too well, and Seize the Gray, who's a horse who was on the ran at 2 in quite a few races, most prominently, and just debuted at 3 with a pretty good allowance race. We've got Endlessly, the West Coast shipper, coming in, who just won the El Camino Real at Golden Gate. West Saratoga, who's been won the Iroquois, and we've seen this year didn't do too well. So it's a really good betting race, I would say, because you tell me who the favorite is. I haven't seen the morning line yet, but it's awful hard to find a horse who's defining, who's really a deserving favorite. So I think this is going to be a lot of fun to watch. And it's a handicapping puzzle to be sure, but we'll take a shot at it. We'll go through them one at a time. Northern Flame is just a solid horse. He's in good form. Didn't run a bad Rebel Stakes. We'll see how he does on the all-weather. He is by Flame Away, and Flame Away's been doing very well as a freshman sire, particularly with horses on turf. So that should translate well into a pretty good all-weather race. Now, the thing is important to note is we've been playing on the lounge and Trust the Profits. We've been playing Turfway quite a bit. And a lot of, those of you who don't play it that often may have heard that, all-weather tracks tend to favor late runners. Well, that's true to a degree. But at Turfway, horses can win on the front end, and we've seen it happen many times. And Northern Flame being a lone runner, if they decide to send him, with all the late runners in this race, it is possible that he could get an edge. He does have a class edge over quite a few of the horses who might want to challenge him for the pace. So he's not to be underestimated. Particularly with Kenny McPeak, as we know, you just never know with them. But Northern Flame, I think, class-wise fits here, and he does have the possibility, the chance to wire the field, though. But I don't know that the scenario is quite right for it. Now, Freedom Principle isn't really good enough, I don't think, to win this race. However, there's a couple of jockeys in here that are really solid at Turfway, and one of them is Adam Beskiza. We've been feasting on the biscuit a lot with Turfway. You can never discount him, and he does know how to play this track. So depending on what he does with Freedom Principle, you're going to get a monster price. And I think he's one that the best he could probably do is a suck up for third or fourth, but he's one that you certainly want to keep in mind because of the biscuit, for sure. Lucky Jeremy just ran out at Sunland in the Sunland Derby and ran a pretty good race, but that was all local horses except for Stronghold, and really wasn't a very good race, and came back with a low class rating. We'll see how he does moving on to the all-weather, but I just don't think he's good enough, really, and I think he's at a class disadvantage, and so I'll pass. Woodcourt ran ran a good Rebel Stakes and a lot better than I thought he would. So perhaps he is on the upturn. The main appeal, more than anything, is Luen Machado, who is the Turfway jockey. There's so many times you've had a horse who doesn't look like he belongs in a race or doesn't look like he's going to do well, and Luen gets the most out of them. So Woodcourt, coming off a pretty good Rebel, if he takes to the all-weather, then I think he maybe has a shot in another one. You're going to get a really nice price. I think underneath is probably more likely, but he's one that you certainly want to keep in the mix. Baytown Chatterbox isn't good enough, and I don't think the surface switch is going to make that much of a difference to him, so he's a pass. West Saratoga won the Iroquois, but has come out this year and not done terribly well. I will say this. He did run a lot better in his... I believe it was the Tampa Derby. I can't remember. I'm late at night when I'm recording this. I'm sorry. But his last race, he did try to get to No More Time, I think it was. It was a bit of a surprise to see him prominent early and trying to make a move. But he did flatten out, and I really just don't think this horse is good enough, or perhaps his progression is stalled from 2 to 3. With the surface switch, I don't know that that's going to make that much of a difference. Though I will say, Cipriano Contreras is a solid trainer at Turfway, and been really killing it at Oaklawn. So he's one maybe, you think about a little bit. I just think he's probably going to be a little bit of an underlay, and I don't want that in this race, so I'm going to let him go. Dancing Groom, follow this for a minute. He has been knocking on the door on occasion, and sometimes he's just not there at all. He's going to come from the clouds. He has to wind up from way back, and certainly with all the other late runners in here, he's at a bit of a disadvantage in that regard. But go back last year to Congruent, rest in peace, or 2 years ago. Congruent was the same type of horse. He just couldn't get it going until they moved him to synthetic. And then all of a sudden he wins the Jeff Ruby out of nowhere. I believe it was. It might have been the Battaglia. But he seems like a very similar kind of horse to me. And it just might be a case where moving to synthetic will get the most out of him. So I'll give him a stab. You're going to get a price again, and he's probably more likely for under. But this is a race where you've got to find value, and I think that maybe this might be the ticket for Dancing Groom to get him on a surface that will agree with him. Noted, if you really look, now he's got glowing connections, Rapoli Stables, Todd Pletcher, but look at his record. He really hasn't done very much. That last race coming out for his 3-year-old debut, he didn't do any running at all. And if you look at, he was pretty good at Saratoga, but he really hasn't faced a whole lot. He won the Sapling, but that hasn't turned out to be, I don't think, was that great a race. Dornoch, we is a horse we're all kind of high on to a degree, but he's got some hair on him as well. So I think he's going to be a major underlay in this race, and I just don't want him in here, and I don't see enough there to tell me that it's a lock because Pletcher trains him and everything else that he would be one that I want to get excited about. He could factor in this race, of course he can. But I don't see enough there to really get excited. And again, I want value in this race, so I'm going to pass. Same thing with Otello. Otello had had the nice race prior to the Holy Bull, and then really didn't do a whole lot in that race. He was bumped. He had a little trouble early, but he didn't make a move forward in that race. And again, the surface switch maybe will light him up a little bit, but I think to me, kind of has that wise guy feel to him, and I think Deterministic is Christophe Clement's Derby horse. I don't think it's Otello. So again, I'm going to pass. Now, Seize the Gray has Made a little noise at 2, and for the coach, and he showed some signs that he's got some talent. And he really, more than anything else, I really liked that debut at 3. I was really surprised to see him run as well as he did. So maybe over the winter, he's grown, filling out, and you'd have to like him in that spot. And coming in second off the layoff, I think he's very logical here. And I think he's a pretty good fit, and I kind of like him to win this race. Triple Espresso is an also eligible, and as we mentioned, he is dual entered in the Louisiana Derby. If I had to choose one for him to run, I would put him here because of his turf record. This is probably a more agreeable surface to him, but I don't think he's really good enough. I haven't seen, from his track record, I don't see enough to get really excited about him, but I think Mike Rapoli just is kind of out of sorts right now, with a lot of his prominent 2-year-olds haven't done terribly well coming into this year. We'll see about Fierceness later, but this seems a desperation move more than anything else to just get a Derby horse. I don't know. I just don't see enough about him to really get excited. But again, it may be all for naught because he may run the Louisiana Derby, where I'm throwing him out there too. Agate Road is another one that, he ran a pretty good Sam F. Davis and ran against the bias to close really well. So I would say from that perspective, you'd have to think that was a positive effort. But he also has a lot of seconds. And he seems like a horse maybe leaves him a little too much to do late. He did close very well, and he'll do well here with the turf background. And I think synthetic won't be an issue for him. So he's one to certainly consider. I think he's probably more likely to be under. And again, I think he's a little bit of an underlay, will likely be one due to his connections. But Agate Road, I think, is one you have to use. Now, Endlessly looks pretty strong here. You'd have to say, now he's a horse that was running on turf out west, and yes, we know, West Coast, the comp is questionable, but, his really only bad race was the Breeders' Cup Turf, and we're certainly not going to, Juvenile Turf, and we're not going to hold that against him, running all against those Europeans. Came out, debuted on synthetic in the El Camino Real. Granted, the comp is a little questionable, but this is a horse who obviously has talent. I don't think the price is going to be terribly short. And I think I like him a little better as a late runner with the potential to win than I do Agate Road because he knows how to win. And, I think that's a really important aspect of any horse in this race is knowing how to win. So Endlessly, I like a lot here, and I think will have a very good chance to win. Circle P isn't also eligible, and I just don't think I don't see enough to get really excited about. So should he draw into the field, I would let him go. So in sum, I think Seize the Gray, based upon the form he's coming into this race with, provided that he can take to the synthetic, to me, at a price, looks very viable as a win candidate, and Endlessly being my second choice. So if we look at our wagering strategy, we're going to go with Seize the Gray, and we're going to put him on top. It'll be odds dependent, of course. I want to have 4-1 or better on him, and I think I'll get it. And then we're going to box him with Endlessly, and then we'll key box with Seize the Gray, with Agate Road, Woodcourt, because of Luan Machado, and Endlessly. And we'll hope we get that home. And if we do, particularly if we can get Woodcourt into the mix, we get a really nice price. Now, for the trifecta, we're just going to plant our flag, take a stab. We're going to use Seize the Gray and Endlessly, and we're going to use all the late runners, all the turfway jockeys, everybody we can get, because there'll be prices galore. So we'll go 1, 2, 5, 6, 7 in third, and then we'll go 9, 10 on top, that should be 9, 10 with 1, 2, 5, 6, 7 with 9, 10 Take a stab, and if it comes through, we should be have a really nice payout because there'll be prices everywhere. This is a race I think you have to find prices in, and I think to me, Seize the Gray offers the best opportunity to take it down.